Hello everyone. In today's video, I bring you an impactful story full of revelations that will shake your beliefs. Let's meet Seraphine, a woman who faced a life-changing near-death experience where she was taken to a spiritual realm, saw Donald Trump in prophetic visions, and received urgent messages about the future of humanity. What she witnessed on the other side will leave you speechless. Before we start, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all notifications. Now, get ready for a story that will touch your soul and change the way you see life. I was born in New Orleans, in a small house that smelled of stale tobacco and bitter coffee. My mother always seemed too busy, and my father worked all the time. There was no room for me. When I turned 3, my life took a turn that I could barely comprehend. A close relative began to hurt me, in ways I didn't understand, but that made me feel ashamed and afraid. That repeated itself for years, a pain that would shape my childhood. However, it was during these moments of abuse that something strange began to happen. It was as if, at the height of my despair, my mind found a way to escape. I floated out of my body, literally. The first time was during a particularly difficult night. I was crying, trying to be invisible, when I felt like an invisible hand was pulling me away. Suddenly, I wasn't there anymore. I looked down and saw my small body shaking on the bed, but I wasn't afraid. A soft light began to appear around me. "Come with me," a female voice said, with a tenderness I had never heard before. She was beautiful, but not like an ordinary person. His form seemed made of light, and his eyes, 2 shining stars, conveyed peace. "I'm Elian," she said, "and I'm here to show you that you're not alone." Elian took me to places I can only describe as paradise. There were forests where trees whispered secrets, rivers that sang, and animals that communicated with me without words. "Everything in life is connected," she explained, pointing to a deer that seemed to understand our words. "Your pain here is felt in other places, Mao, but the love you learn to give from it spreads even further." These experiences didn't happen all the time, but when they did, they changed me. They were my relief in a dark world, proof that there was something greater than my pain. As he grew older, these journeys with Elian began to diminish. The abuse stopped when I was 12, but the shadow of those years never completely disappeared. Still, the moments with Elian were seeds of hope planted in my soul. When I married Caleb at 25, I thought I had escaped all the shadows of the past. He was charming, charismatic, and most of all, he seemed to listen to me. At the time, that was all I wanted. Someone who could fill the void left by years of loneliness. For a few months, Caleb was exactly who I thought he was. He made me laugh, filled the house with music, and gave me flowers for no apparent reason. But soon the signs began to appear. First, there was criticism about how I dressed. Then came the jealousy at parties, the incessant questions about where I was and who I was with. I believed this was all normal, that he just loved me too much. Then the tantrums began. Caleb broke dishes, punched walls, and then, as always, he apologized. "I'm just stressed, Sarah," he would say, using the nickname I loved. "You know I love you, don't you?" I knew, but doubt started to grow. After our daughter, Amara, was born, things got worse. Caleb began to control everything. The money, my time, even who I could talk to. The woman he said he loved was now a shadow, and I found myself increasingly submissive. He never raised a hand against me, but sometimes I wished it was something physical. It was easier to explain a mark on the face than the invisible bruises on the soul. Over time, my health began to deteriorate. I stopped eating properly. My body became a reflection of my mind, exhausted, fragile, empty. The only thing keeping me alive was Amara, but even she didn't seem enough. One night, after yet another argument that ended with me locked in the bathroom, I broke down. Caleb's words echoed in my head. "You're useless. It's not even good enough to be a good mother." At that moment, I decided to end it all. I wrote a brief letter apologizing to Amara and God, praying for a sign that this wasn't right. With the blade in my hand, I felt a sudden light flood the small bathroom. The light was warm, almost tangible, and it seemed to embrace me. A voice rang out, not through my ears, but directly into my soul. "This is not your time, Seraphine. You have a mission." The object fell from my hand, and I collapsed to the floor, crying. After that night, I was taken to the hospital. My health was hanging by a thread, and I barely remember how I got there. Everything seemed like a blur until the moment I lost consciousness. And that's when the experience truly began. Suddenly, it was no longer in my body. It was as if I were floating above the hospital bed, watching my pale, limp body. The monitors beeped, and doctors rushed to stabilize my vital functions. He felt no fear, just a deep calm, almost as if he was finally where he was supposed to be. It was then that I felt a presence beside me. It wasn't Elion this time, but two beings of light. They were tall, almost translucent, with human shapes but no defined faces. Their voices, although silent, echoed inside me with indescribable clarity. "You're not done here, Seraphine," one of them said, his tone gentle but firm. "There is work to do, and you have been chosen to do it." The two guides led me away from the hospital scene, through what appeared to be a glowing fog. Soon, we were in a place that seemed to pulse with living energy. It wasn't heaven, but it was a place of learning. Long tables, made of crystalline light, were spread out, and other souls were there, absorbing knowledge. "We need to prepare you," said the second guide. They started teaching me things I had never imagined. They showed me how the energy of the universe flows through everything and everyone, how we can use this energy to heal not only ourselves, but also others. They explained that love and forgiveness are tangible forces, capable of transforming even the deepest suffering into light. One of the most striking lessons was about the power of intention. I was taken into a scenario where every thought or emotion I emitted shaped the environment around me. When I thought of sadness, the ground cracked beneath my feet. When I thought about love, flowers burst from the earth. "This is the strength of your soul," said the guides. When I returned to my body, I felt like I had been reborn. I spent 3 months in the hospital, where spiritual guides continued to visit me, sometimes in my sleep, sometimes in waking moments. Each encounter seemed to reinforce my purpose. The day I was discharged, I met a medium, seemingly by chance, who looked me straight in the eye and said, "You know why you're here, don't you? It's time to begin your mission." And so my transformation began. Years had passed since my first NDE, and my life had taken a different direction. I dedicated myself to healing, teaching, and writing, as I had been instructed. However, the shadow of the past still hung over me. Although my soul had been reborn, my body still bore the scars of abuse, depression, and anorexia. At age 37, my health collapsed. I was hospitalized again, this time with a debilitating condition that affected multiple organs. Doctors were skeptical about my recovery. Amara, now 10, came to the hospital daily, holding my hand and reading me stories. One cold November night, Amara entered the room with an expression that broke my heart. She knew, somehow, that time was running out. She held my hand tightly, silent tears streaming down her face. "Mommy, I love you. Please don't go." Those words were the last thing I heard before everything changed. Suddenly I was out of my body again, but this time it was different. I was enveloped by a peaceful darkness, not scary, but mysterious. Two spiritual beings appeared again, their forms even brighter than before. They held out their hands, and I was led into a tunnel of light. At the end of the tunnel, a huge room of golden energy unfolded, vibrating with a force that seemed alive. There, they showed me a detailed review of my life, every moment of pain, every difficult choice, but also every act of kindness. I saw the times I had helped someone without realizing it, the moments when one word from me changed someone's day. However, something even more impressive was to come. I was led into a kind of vision of the future. The light became a screen, showing clear and frightening images. Powerful rulers, including Donald Trump, formed alliances that defied divine commands. These actions would result in spiritual and moral crises, with devastating consequences for humanity. "You need to go back and tell the world," the guide said. "People need to know. They need to prepare." But I hesitated. Being in the light was like finally being home. I felt a peace so profound that it was almost unbearable to think about leaving it. It was then that the memories with Amara took over. I relived precious moments. Your laugh as a baby, your eyes shining when you called me mommy. This connection of unconditional love gave me the strength to choose to return. When I woke up in the hospital, tears were streaming down Amara's face. "You're back," she said, hugging me. And at that moment, I knew my mission wasn't over yet. As I walked through the tunnel of light, the feeling of peace was overwhelming. But when I reached the golden space that seemed to pulse with living energy, the visions began. They weren't just images. They were like real-time lived experiences, every detail vivid and clear. The spiritual being showed me a group of people, all authority figures, gathered in a luxurious and secret location. I recognized some of them immediately. Donald Trump was a central figure, surrounded by other leaders from different parts of the world. There was an aura of power and ambition around them, but also something dark, almost unnatural. These leaders, one of the guides began to explain, are forming alliances that will directly challenge God's commandments. The visions showed leaders articulating agreements that would impact the spirituality of billions of people. They were creating policies and systems that prioritized power and control, sacrificing divine values for their own interests. They will shape the future of humanity, not to serve the greater good, but to fuel their own agendas. The guide continued. These choices will have devastating consequences for the earth, unbalancing not only the physical environment, but also the spiritual energy that sustains life. The images became more intense. I saw scenarios of global crises, conflicts, hunger, and a growing distance between human beings and their connection with the divine. It was as if the earth was crying out for help, but its voice was drowned out by greed and selfishness. One particularly strong scene stuck with me. I saw people en masse, walking as if hypnotized, following leaders who seemed to have charisma but whose intentions were manipulative. The sense of spiritual loss was palpable, as if a dark fog covered the entire world. "You need to warn the others," the guide insisted, his voice echoing inside me. "Humanity still has a choice, but time is short. Every soul who understands the importance of connecting with the divine can help reverse this course." Eventually, the vision changed to something more comforting. I saw small groups of people spread across the world, illuminated by a divine light. They were people who resisted the darkness, who spread love, hope, and wisdom. I understood that my mission was to guide more people along this path. As the light began to fade, the guide's final words were imprinted on me. "You won't be heard by everyone, but every seed you plant will be essential." These revelations were not just a calling. They were a reminder that the future is still being written, and every action matters. After the visions of the future, I was enveloped by an even more intense light. As if God's own love was embracing me, everything around me disappeared, and I felt completely united with this divine presence. There was no more pain, fear, or any trace of the shadows that had marked my life. In this state, I felt like I could understand everything, the purpose of existence, the reasons for pain, and the hidden beauty in every aspect of life. It was a peace so profound that I cannot describe it in human words. It was then that I heard a voice, not with my ears, but within me. It was the same voice that had spoken to me in the bathroom years ago, only now much clearer. "Seraphine, you can choose. You can remain here, united with the light, or you can return. The decision is yours." My first reaction was to stay. Being there was like finally being home, in a place where there was no judgment or suffering. But as I pondered, memories of my daughter began to surface. First, I saw the moment I felt Amara kick in my belly for the first time. Then I relived the moment I held her in my arms at birth, with her bright eyes and warm skin against mine. I remembered the nights I rocked her to sleep, the sound of her laugh and the purity of her voice when she called me Mommy. These memories were so vivid that they seemed to be happening at that moment. I felt my heart contract with love, but also with pain. If I chose to remain in the light, Amara would grow up without me. She would face the world without the protection and love I always wanted to give her. "I need to go back," I thought. "She needs me." The light seemed to respond, as if it understood my choice. "You will be guided," said the voice, full of compassion. "But know that the path will be difficult. Your mission has just begun." In the next instant, everything disappeared. The peace was replaced by a sharp pain, and I felt the weight of my body again. I opened my eyes and saw Amara, with tears streaming down her face. She held my hand tightly, whispering, "You're back, Mommy. I knew you would come back." I hugged her with all the strength I had. Despite the physical pain, I felt renewed inner strength. I had made the right choice. When I returned to my body, reality hit me like a shock. The fluorescent lights of the hospital, the noises of the heart monitors, and the feeling of my aching body were almost oppressive after the serenity I had experienced. But something was different. I no longer felt the weight of hopelessness that had accompanied me for so many years. Amara was at my side, holding my hand with an expression that mixed relief and astonishment. "Mommy," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I knew you would come back. I asked God every night." I could barely speak, but I managed to shake his hand with a slight smile. The strength in my body was still fragile, but inside me, something new had been born. The following days were extraordinary. The doctors were perplexed. My critical condition began to reverse at a speed that defied any scientific explanation. "We've never seen anything like this," said one of the doctors, shaking his head. "Your body is regenerating itself in a way that is practically impossible." Although I was grateful for the recovery, I knew this was more than a simple physical miracle. There was an energy flowing inside me that I had never felt before. I understood that my healing was not just for me. It was for the mission I needed to accomplish. During my recovery, I began writing compulsively, as if every word was a conduit for something bigger. The lessons that the spiritual guides had taught me came back clearly, about the power of love, forgiveness, and connection between all living beings. Every word I put down on paper seemed loaded with purpose. Furthermore, my view on death has completely changed. I no longer feared her. I understood that death was not an end, but a transition, a door to a state of understanding and union with the divine. I knew I needed to share this message with the world. I began giving talks and helping people who were facing losses and spiritual crises. Each time I shared my story, I felt like I was fulfilling the mission I had been given. People came up to me, often in tears, saying that my words brought comfort and hope in difficult times. There were still doubts and challenges, but each small victory reaffirmed that I was on the right path. And most of all, there was Amara, my beacon of light, reminding me daily why I chose to return. After my recovery, a transformation took over me. Everything that had once seemed so solid and frightening, like death, loss, and life's challenges, was now seen in a new light. The near-death experience hadn't just changed my perception, I had renewed my soul. Death, which I had previously seen as an inevitable and tragic end, was now something completely different. It wasn't an interruption, but a transition, a journey back to where we all came from. I understood, with an inexplicable certainty, that death was not something to be feared, but something to be respected as part of the sacredness of the cycle of life. This understanding gave me the courage to face challenges that would previously have paralyzed me. For the first time, I felt that my pain, both physical and emotional, was not a punishment or a curse, but part of a larger narrative. It was training, an apprenticeship that prepared me to help other people. My mission became clear, to share the lessons I had received, not only about the sacredness of life and death, but also about the power of love, forgiveness, and spiritual connection. I wanted to help people find the peace that I had found, even in the midst of pain. I started speaking in small groups in my community in New Orleans. People came to me, curious, often skeptical, but left emotional, some in tears. "You managed to put into words something I always felt but never knew how to explain," said a woman during one of my talks. Soon, I was invited to bigger events. My story seemed to touch hearts universally. It didn't matter what people's religion, culture, or beliefs were. They identified with the pain, love, and hope I shared. I also started writing. My spirit guides had emphasized the importance of recording my experiences, and now I understood why. My words could reach people I would never meet in person. So I published my first book, a detailed account of my NDEs and the spiritual lessons I received. The responses were overwhelming. Letters and messages arrived from all over the country and even from abroad. People shared how my story helped them face their own battles. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was accomplishing my mission. Today, every day is an opportunity to share, heal, and learn. The love I felt in the divine light still guides me, and the memory of Amara gives me strength. I understand the path is difficult, but my mission is greater than any obstacle. My journey is not just mine. It's a reminder that we are all part of something much bigger, and that even in pain, there is purpose. My journey, marked by pain, miracles, and revelations, was not just about me. It has always been, and always will be, about the interconnectedness of all lives, about how our individual stories weave together into a vast spiritual fabric that connects each of us, even when we can't see it. My main message is that love is the most powerful force in the universe. It is not just an emotion, but a tangible energy that can transform lives. heal wounds, and even change the destiny of our souls. During my near-death experiences, I saw how love, in its purest form, can illuminate the darkest corners of our existence. There is something that left a deep impression on me during my second NDE. The vision of small groups of enlightened people spread across the world. They resisted the darkness, radiating love and hope, like lighthouses amid an ocean of turmoil. I understood that each of us has the potential to be one of these lights. Global change begins in our own hearts and in our everyday actions. My mission is simple but challenging, to help people understand that life is sacred, that pain, no matter how unbearable it may seem, is often the portal to a spiritual awakening. That death is not an end, but a transition to something bigger and more beautiful. Today, I continue to give talks, write and listen to stories from other people who have also gone through transformative experiences. With each new connection, I realize how much our pains and triumphs unite us. No matter how different we seem, we all share a common search, meaning, peace, and love. My daughter, Amara, now 15, is my greatest living testimony to how love can save us. She inspires me every day, reminding me of the strength I found on my journey and the mission I chose to embrace. If there's one thing I'd like you to take away from this account, it's this. No matter how dark your journey seems right now, you are never alone. There is a light within you and around you, waiting to be accessed. Your story is not over yet, and the seeds you plant today may blossom into miracles tomorrow. If you like this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.